Hey traders, welcome back to the weekly Forex Forecast. Next week is a huge week for interest rate decisions. We have one out of the US, out of Switzerland, out of the UK, and also out of Japan, as well as others such as Turkey and Norway. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how I'm looking to navigate those interest rate decisions in a huge week for markets next week. Okay, so let's have a look at the scores for the coming week. You can see the dollar is still number one. It's absolutely at the top of the pile. This is my favorite currency going into next week, and it's to the long side. However, we've got FOMC on Wednesday. What does that mean? Between Monday and Wednesday, we're unlikely to see the US dollar doing very much. It's probably going to be choppy. It's probably going to lack direction and volatility. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this be the case with all of the Forex markets because of the global reserve nature of the US dollar. When the dollar is choppy, very often all Forex markets are choppy as well. So what this does is this splits next week into two, essentially pre-FOMC, where the market's likely to be choppy and consolidate, and post-FOMC on Wednesday, where the markets are likely to be volatile and directional. So what that means is, leading up to FOMC on Wednesday, I do like the idea of range trading. Those markets which test their upper and lower bounds, I will be looking to buy or sell those so they hold their range before Wednesday. In terms of the pound pairs, you can also do that into Thursday's interest rate decision. And I like the yen pairs for range trading next week because they have an interest rate decision on Friday, which pretty much means we have all week where the yen could be choppy and lack direction. So I like range trading up to Wednesday for the dollar pairs, up to Thursday for the pound pairs, and up to Friday for the yen pairs. And the euro is essentially just the inverse of the dollar, right? So although I like the euro going into this week, and I'll explain to you why when we start to look through the markets, but I do just consider that essentially as the opposite of the dollar. So going into next week, I also like range trades in the euro between Monday and Wednesday. And between Wednesday and Friday, you can also start to look for more volatility after FOMC and some of those intra-week directional trades. So to cut a long story short, my favorite currencies going into next week to the long side are the US dollar, the Canadian dollar, and the Swiss franc, followed by the euro, which is my number one currency to the downside because it's weak and getting weaker, and also the pound, which is neutral and getting weaker. And the third market we're also going to look at here, I do really like, is the Japanese yen. Although it's bottomed in the scorecards here, I like the fact we've got that interest rate decision on Friday, and I am going to be looking for some of those range trades. In other words, holding its upper or lower bounds if it tests it in those currencies between Monday and Friday of next week. And then be out of those by the BOJ's decision, and then we can come back next week and look at the yen pairs again. Starting with crude oil. Now, crude oil is on my watch list as a market that I'm really looking to trade to the upside. This was highlighted as a good opportunity to be long, and we traded right into the max profit taking zone highlighted in last week's video. Crude oil is still scoring top of the commodity scorecards, and so going into next week, any pullback in this market is simply viewed as an opportunity to look for a breakout intra-week into the 95 handle. And the second place I'm going to look for a potential long opportunity next week is if we trade into the 87 area. This is where I'm going to be looking for a short-term bullish setup in crude oil. I can either buy crude oil next week or do nothing. Selling this market is not an option for me currently. Next is euro dollar. I've added the watch list over here now so you can see this is one of my favorite setups highlighted in gold here. And euro dollar is a market next week which is subject, of course, to the US dollar and FOMC on Wednesday. Now, last week we did have ECB. They did hike, and Lagarde didn't commit to ending the hiking cycle. However, the market took this as being the final hike of the ECB's hiking cycle, and as a result, we saw a weakness in the euro, and I am looking for further declines in the euro this week, and the euro to the downside is one of my favorite plays. But just bear in mind we have FOMC on Wednesday. So I am looking for this market to potentially consolidate into Wednesday, and then I'm going to be looking for one of two things. I'm going to be looking for a move into the 1.0760 in order to fade FOMC on Wednesday. Or if we break out to the downside like this on Wednesday, I'm going to be looking for a pullback and a follow through to the downside to 1.0560. I can either short euro dollar next week or do nothing. Buying this is not an option, so I'm either looking to fade FOMC or I'm going to be looking to trade a follow through with a breakout to the downside on FOMC itself. Next is pound dollar. Now the pound has actually weakened. This was a market we've been looking at buying all year in the weekly Forex forecast videos. However, I do now like the pound to the downside. It's on my list versus the dollar here first and foremost. I'm looking for this market to correct, consolidate into FOMC on Wednesday. And then again, just like with the euro, if we spike into the 1.255 area, and maybe we test this high, this is going to be the area I'd be looking to fade FOMC on Wednesday. Or if we consolidate into Wednesday, as is likely to be the case, and then we get a breakdown in the direction of the overall trend here in pound dollar and in line with the overall scorecards, I'm going to be looking for a pullback after the momentum breakdown on FOMC and a follow-through trade into the 1.2250. Again, I can either be short this or do nothing. Buying this is not an option. So I'm either fading FOMC on Wednesday, given the chance, or I'm looking for that breakout on FOMC and a pullback for a follow-through after Wednesday. Next is US dollar yen. Now, it's not highlighted in gold because pound dollar and euro dollar are my two favorite dollar pairs next week. However, this was the number one Forex pair highlighted to the upside last week. We came down and we tested the buy zone here at the 146, almost to the pip, and we bounced for the rest of the week. So a really nice setup to the upside last week in US dollar yen. Coming into this week, any pullback in this market is viewed as an opportunity to look for a breakout on FOMC on Wednesday, and I'd be looking for a move up towards the 150 into the BOJ meeting. Or if we just consolidate into Wednesday and then we sell off, this would be the second place I'd be looking for a buy opportunity, the 143.75 roughly, for a short-term bounce in US dollar yen between FOMC and BOJ on Friday. Next is New Zealand dollar, very similar to the other setups that we're looking at here. I'm going to be looking for this market to correct, or maybe even, if we get a test on Monday, this would be what I was talking about, range trading. So holding the range between Monday and Wednesday. But assuming we don't and we just move sideways, if we trade into the 0.5980 on FOMC, I'll look for this market to stall out a bit, and then I'll look for a potential fade to the downside, as I can either be short or do nothing this market. I can't buy this market next week. Or if we just consolidate and then, which often happens, you get a breakout on FOMC, a pullback, and then another sell-off, a follow-through into the 0.5820 between Wednesday and Friday. And the final dollar pair here is Aussie dollar. This was the area highlighted last week for a potential short-term selling opportunity. You can see we did trade into this and we had a really nice down day at the end of the week last week. Coming into this week, I can either sell this or do nothing. Buying is not an option. So I'm looking for this market to consolidate and then test the prior highs post FOMC on Wednesday at 0.6520. This is the area I would be looking at fading this to the downside. Very similar to what we looked at a second ago, where we tested this area and then sold off at the end of last week. Or if we just consolidate, I'm going to be looking, the second thing I'm going to be looking for is a breakout of this correction on FOMC, a pullback, and then a follow through into the 0.6340 between Wednesday and Friday. Next is EurCad. We traded into and through the max profit taking zone last week. This tells us there's really nice momentum to the downside, and I really like this market going into next week, especially with that bearish catalyst from the hike last week by the ECB, but the market taking that as being the final hike. This is why we saw that weakness, and I expect that weakness to continue this week, although again, we are going to see euro subject to FOMC on Wednesday. So any pullback, and you can see we've got a really nice bear flag setting up. If we pull back into the 1.455, I'm going to be looking for a short-term sell opportunity in this market. Or if we pull back and we start to break out, then I'm going to be looking at perhaps again, this market just consolidates into FOMC because of the global reserve nature of the dollar. It kind of holds up all markets when it's choppy. But if we get a breakout, I'm going to be looking for a follow through into the 1.43 next week. Next is Euro franc, a very, very choppy market, and I'm going to be looking again for exactly the same things. If we can pull back and test the 0.9640 next week, this is going to be a great place to start to look for a short-term sell opportunity in this market. But if we start to break out to the downside, so we correct, and then we break out, I'm going to be looking for a pullback and a follow through into the 0.950. So again, I can either be short this market next week or do nothing, either on the breakout and a follow through, or from the 0.9640 as a fading opportunity. So after EurCad and Euro franc, both highlighted in gold next week, the final two Forex markets here are pound CAD and pound franc. You can see we've already got really nice momentum. So I'm looking for a pullback, and I'm going to be looking for this market to break out intra-week down to the 1.66. Or if we hold the range as usual and we pull all the way back into the 1.6950, this is the second place I'm going to be looking for a short-term sell opportunity in pound CAD next week. And finally, we have pound franc, a very, very choppy market, but I'm going to look for this market to pull back and consolidate, and I'm going to be looking for a breakout to the downside with momentum and any kind of bear flag set up into the 1.1020. And of course, if we fail to break out and we just hold this and we hold this and we trend into the 1.1220, this is the second area at these highs that I'm going to be looking for a potential sell opportunity in pound franc next week. And the final two markets are gold and silver, starting with silver because this is my favorite short out of the two. I do favor short positions in both of them because of the strength of the dollar. Any pullback in this market next week, I'm going to be looking for an intra-week breakout down to the 22.20 area. And if we hold this range instead of breaking out and we bounce and we bounce and we trade into the 2380, this is the second place I'm going to be looking for a short-term sell opportunity in silver next week. And finally, we have gold. Now, again, I do favor silver shorts, but I am looking to potentially short gold as well next week. So any pullback in this market, and if we pull all the way back and we retest the prior high here in the 1954 area roughly, this is going to be a great place to look for a short-term selling opportunity in gold next week. And if we fail to pull all the way back and instead we just break out intra-week, so instead of trending all the way into this upper bound over here, we break out intra-week, maybe even on FOMC or after FOMC. This is going to be the place I'm going to be looking for a follow through to the downside into the 18.92 area. So that is it for me for this week, guys. As always, I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, why not consider joining us in the room each day where I go through these markets and the setups that I'm personally looking at with members on a daily basis for over 75 markets in different asset classes, including stocks, bonds, Forex, and commodities.